You're listening to The Sound of Pursuit. I'm Hal Humphreys.
I'm John Nardizzi.
This past weekend was damn near perfect. 4 nights at our beloved Sedgwood camp. It's a knoll and a wood at the end of a lane in Tennessee. It rained on Saturday, not a quick shower or spot of rain, but a day-long soaking that inspired a lack of ambition. Kim and I snuggled in for an afternoon of movies. A perfect way to spend a rainy day on a knoll, in a wood, at the end of a lane in Tennessee, or anywhere for that matter. We queued up The Menu on HBO and happily took that slippery descent into dark farce. I'm not going to offer up any spoilers other than to say this is a dark comedy. Heavy on the dark with just a hint of humor threading its way throughout in spite of the ponderous portions of calamity. This is a film about food, but not really. If you know me, you know I do enjoy food. I have been called a foodie, but that label never felt right. I like food. I like cooking. I like eating. I'm not so much enamored of the whole molecular gastronomy thing. I might sometimes fall into the realm of Epicurean, but only in the sense that I really enjoy food. While I do enjoy luxury in meals, I can find luxury in very simple things. Barbecue, a meat and three, or, and this is relevant to the movie, a perfect cheeseburger. Chef Slowick, played by Ralph Fiennes, said to one of the guests in the film, "I'll make you feel as if you're eating the first cheeseburger you ever ate, the cheap one your parents could barely afford." I want that. The Menu is a study in class and wealth and privilege and entitlement, but it's also a study in how joy dissipates under the pressure of the need to make money, the desire to make more money, the demands of clients, the expectations of customers, the pressures to do more, make more, be more. All that said, this movie still left a sense of a lingering taste of hope. I've been a private investigator for the past 15 years. I've been in and around the business of investigation since I was a kid. This may sound strange, but I have found great joy over the years in this work. There is meaning in providing a valuable service. There is joy in being outside of a full day, tracking down witnesses and asking questions. Visiting a crime scene, seeing what people have done, how people live, cultural differences, taking an interview in that shop out back that was custom built to hold that 1969 Boss 429 Mustang, talking to a guy in that board and batten barn that holds an array of vintage farmalls. There's the Cub, the Super A, the Model C, all fully restored. Listening to a witness excitedly tell you about the notches on the kitchen door frame, or why he can't stomach living here one more day without her. Late night surveillance, listening to Art Bell in the small hours of the morning. Work of an investigator allows us a voyeuristic peek into the hopes and dreams and triumphs and losses of others. If we slow down and notice, there is great joy in this work. But the phone rings, an email dings. Please update the status of this report. Ding. Why not use a video camera instead of your phone? Ding. Is this report still scheduled for a Friday delivery? Ding, ding, ding. And with each ding, our joy slips ever so quietly down the back of our throat as we swallow our pride, our professionalism, our dignity to keep those clients happy so we can earn more, make more, do more. Here's an idea. Head out the door for your next surveillance with an open mind. Pay attention. Notice. Notice how people live. Notice the cool or strange choices people make. Listen to their story. Check out their collections, muscle cars, tractors, whatever. Just take some time to notice. Consider how your work, the work of a boots on the ground investigator, fits into the global legal and insurance ecosystem. Consider the service you actually provide, offering your professional observations and opinions about witnesses, people, and their behavior. Helping your attorneys serve their clients better, helping insurance companies identify fraud, helping a husband or a wife get the whole story. Saving a company from hiring the wrong person. You are an integral part of risk analysis. I mean, that's pretty cool when you slow down enough to truly consider it. The Menu is a truly dark farce. It is violent. There is bloodshed. It is not for everyone. But it landed on my plate perfectly. Kim and I spent hours discussing the movie's themes, takeaways, and overall meaning. I know I've gone on for a little bit, but for me, the takeaway of The Menu is simple. There is joy in the small things. There is joy in this work. John, I want to say thank you, first of all, for being willing to play along on this podcast. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it and having someone to bounce ideas off and that kind of stuff. You know, Kim and I dove into that movie, The Menu, over the weekend. And, you know, after talking to you, it seems like you had watched it as well. What were your thoughts about that movie? Did it hit you in kind of the same way?
It did. It's funny that all four of us watched the movie this weekend, and it's about food, but not really. You know, it's the jokes are dark and hilarious and a little hopeless and sad in parts, and you know, it's about the obsessive pursuit of excellence and fame and ego, and I loved it. I thought it hits all the things that I love: food and pursuing a dream and pursuing art, and then crime noir as well. What did you think of it?
You know, the moment the movie was over, several times throughout the movie, I found myself laughing at very inappropriate moments.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the way they designed it. But literally after the movie was over, Kim and I kind of sat there in silence for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And then the conversation started and we didn't stop talking about it for at least 2 hours. Just nonstop. What does this mean? What does this mean? What does it say about society? All that stuff. But I think for me that the thing that gets me is it's so easy to get sucked into perfection and try to do the absolute like nth degree of work on everything. And at the end of the day, my friend John Aho, who has helped me build a couple of projects around out at the Buffalo River, we were working on a building one afternoon, and I was being very precious about where things should be and how the measurements were working out. And he looked at me and goes, Hal,
Yeah.
it's not a church. Nail it.
Right.
And sometimes just getting a thing done is just as important as being perfect. Now, Brian Willingham and I have talked about perfection and that kind of business. And I know he has some ideas about, things should be as good or as close to perfect as possible. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but at some point, you got to get the work done. And the movie's point, at some point, people have to eat, right?
Yeah.
For private investigators, at some point, somebody's going to have to go to court. The work needs to be done. And the other thing is, I think that the minute you lose the joy in the work, it really stops being fun. And this work can be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I sometimes joke with people, the only thing worse than a celebrity PI is a celebrity chef or vice versa. We all have a taste of it when you work on these big cases and you see celebrities and you work on celebrity cases, and you have a budget and you can conceivably do anything, which is unlike some cases. But in the end, you have to have joy in this work, and sometimes I'd rather watch somebody. Rather watch a garbage man throwing barrels into the truck if he's doing it, enjoying it, than watch an artist be sullen about it. And that's what was so great about that movie was that chef. They flash back to the early days when he was just cooking hamburgers in the restaurant and the joy on his face. In those old snapshots that they uh, they showed.
And the funny thing about like the movie telegraphs a lot of things. Like it's just like exactly what's about to happen next in a couple of spots, and that was one of the ones, that foreshadowing of the picture of him just looking as happy as possible. The cheeseburgers, like, yeah, that's
Right.
going to come back. That's going to mean something. But when we're doing, all right, so you and I both focus primarily on criminal defense work, which can be heartbreaking at times. A lot of times the outcomes are not what we're hoping for. Things go wrong for our clients, the attorneys, and their clients, the defendants. But when it goes right, it is spectacular.
Yes, it is.
And for surveillance guys, I was thinking about this afternoon. The folks that are out there in surveillance, I've done surveillance work and I've had a lot of fun doing it. I don't want to do it right now. I'm too old to be sitting in a car at 2:00 in the morning, on a chilly night doing that stuff. But my God, I had some fun doing surveillance back in the day. Have you ever done surveillance work?
Oh, sure. Yeah, when I was brought into this business, we were expected to do a little bit of everything. And I think that's one of the things as you get on in your career and you become more successful, whatever it is, whether you're focusing on surveillance or trial work and doing research and interviews, there's always that balance between doing the work and then as you get bigger, now you're managing people. So you're getting bigger and you're doing more managing. And for a lot of us, and I think you and I have talked about this, there's less pleasure in it for me. I'm a person who likes to do things. I don't always want to supervise. And I've had people who have told me, they said you should be hiring more people and doing less work. And I've tried to do that and I pulled back. And that was one of the strange things that I kept thinking about during that movie was a chef who just, when it comes time to make the big cheeseburger in that scene, the look of joy that just radiates over his face. And I feel like I still have that when I'm doing the work. When someone tells me, "Hey, can you go find this person, do background research, and go find them? They're somewhere in the country. Do you think you can locate them? It's been, 12 years or something like that." That's the joy, and that's what's so great about that film. It just sort of that theme echoed throughout.
Yeah, and I think we have several friends in this business that work for larger companies or that own larger companies, and that's one of the main complaints I hear from them is the more employees you get, the more you end up doing managerial stuff, and you don't get out, get your hands dirty, and do that stuff.
Yeah,
Here's the thing. I'm gonna go ahead and drop I'm gonna go here to the host clean, and I'm gonna drop a little hashtag business here. We're talking about the movie The Menu. You can find it on HBO. I think it is a fantastic movie. Like I said earlier, it ain't for everyone. It's brutal. It's messy. It is I call it a dark farce. It's
yeah,
there's comedy there, but you got to kind of look for it.
yeah.
I will say this. You are listening to The Sound of Pursuit. I'm Hal Humphreys, and this is my buddy John Nardizzi here. John, introduce yourself again.
John Nardizzi. I'm an investigator from the Boston area. Great to be here with Hal, talking about all things crime noir and investigation and film and everything else in between.
You can find us on Twitter at pursuitmag.com. You can also find me on Twitter at FindPI. And if you're looking for John Nardizzi on Twitter, you can find him at AuthorPI. So that is where to find us on social medias. John, we had talked about discussing some of the Idaho case, the Idaho murder case. I have not been as deeply steeped in that as I probably should be. Give us a rundown of what that's about, what's happening, where it is.
Yeah, so that I'm sure many people have been following on the murders of 4 college students in Moscow, Idaho, and the defendant is, Brian Kohlberger, who's been charged. One of the interesting things about the case was it seemed like the investigation was proceeding very quietly. There was no, name attached to it for, I think, it was well over 3 or 4 weeks, and then last week the police produced an affidavit that has, kind of a woven tapestry of almost every single piece of evidence that you would see in a criminal or civil case. You got security cameras, internet video streams, TikTok postings, which were timed, cell phone tower hits from a cell phone that pinged, DNA samples, and even a witness ID. So everything's in there, and it looks complete. It looks like it was very well done. But as we all know, Hal, on the defense side, reasonable doubt may exist
What is it,
somewhere in there.
one of my lawyers says, reasonable doubt for reasonable fee.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah, that's
there's
what we offer.
anytime a case like this hits the public, it's out there in the public realm, and it's getting a lot of news like that. You get all these experts chiming in and getting airtime, that kind of stuff. You get on Twitter and Facebook, you've got citizens that don't really know what it is we do or what it is the police do, saying, "Oh, they're doing a horrible job. They haven't done anything. It's been 3 weeks.
Right.
What are they doing?" Sometimes these investigations on the prosecution side just take some time, and from the defense side, a lot of times, until we have a defendant identified, there's nothing for us to do.
That's right.
But what are
We
your
don't have a
thoughts on?
client.
I know there was a private investigator that was interviewed about the story, and I don't want to say names. But when you get called by press members to comment on a case that is ongoing, that is or new in the news like that, what is your how do you deal with that?
Um, Generally, I decline it because sort of out of respect to fellow colleagues, we all know how long this stuff takes. I mean, a couple weeks is really not that long, and I think the modern sentiment is, you hear this thing lay people talk about, well, if a murder is not solved in 48 hours, it's the percentages go down. Yeah, probably true, but it's still a very good chance they're going to solve it if they do it properly. So, um, it's way too early to comment. And we're sort of having fun here because we're in the industry and we're already noting things about the affidavit that you might attack as a defense investigator or attorney. But I think you have to be careful about picking apart other investigators. It reminds me when you have somebody come into your house, a carpenter, and then they start trashing the work done by the previous carpenter. Just because it's different doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah.
Too many times people automatically think that there's only one way to do it, and I think we all know that's not true. There's many ways to solve a problem, to conduct an investigation, to cook food, like in the menu, different approaches, different recipes. So
Yeah, and the picking apart of another person's work, whether they be a private investigator or a public investigator, a police officer, a detective, or a DA investigator. I mean, the best of us on either side of that fence are out there trying to find facts and put together a reasonable narrative. Are there some bad ones out there that are doing bad work? Of course, on both sides of the fence.
yeah,
But when we as private investigators start picking apart someone else's work without full knowledge of what's going on and what they're doing, I think that's bad form.
yeah, I agree. And I think related to that too is the competition that we all face, just gathering facts on a case like this murder in Moscow, Idaho. You're competing against reporters. You're competing against police officers. Everybody's going after the same witnesses. And I'm sure you've worked on some of these cases that are in the news. Have you run into situations where witnesses are discussing with you, hey, I spoke with somebody from national whatever. They're going to pay me for an interview. Why should I talk to you? You're just a private investigator. Have you had that come up and handle that in a certain way?
Oh, I've had witnesses ask for money, ask for drugs, ask for alcohol, ask for pretty much everything. I've had them tell me, so-and-so reporter is going to pay me for my story. At the end of the day, my approach as a private investigator is, look, you know what? I'm working for a defense attorney. I kind of consider it a civil duty. If you know something about the thing, do the right thing. If you were in this person's shoes, would you not want someone to step up and talk
Right.
and tell us what really happened? That's the way I approach it. Doesn't always work. I mean, I had one witness. We ended up subpoenaing her to a hearing that was going to happen anyway, and then talking to her in the hallway because she would not, like, we couldn't find her anywhere. We went by her house. Her mom was hiding her. She just didn't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, I've said this once. I've said it 5 gazillion times. We're private investigators. We can't make people talk to us. We have to rely on, charm and good looks.
Yeah, and I sometimes tell people, say, if you're going to take money from one of these so-called newspapers, that's fine, but I'm coming back with something known as a subpoena.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in the end, and that's not, we don't threaten witnesses with that in the sense that it's not true. It's absolutely true. As we know, as we get closer to trial, sometimes witnesses think if I can evade this guy for, the 2-year investigation, I might be okay. That might be true, but we're going to be going with all guns blazing to get that document to you and get the sheriff's department to get you into court. And we've done that. And so that's sort of the ultimate trump card. I think you can, maybe you're going to get paid, whatever, but the story is going to be told in the courtroom as well in the end.
No doubt. Always is. John, I can't thank you enough for doing this. And I'm looking forward to you and me finding a groove with this podcast and putting out some really interesting podcasts in the coming months. And from this point forward, I'm going to promise our listeners that we're going to do a little bit more research up front. We're going to get Kim involved on prepping us on some things, and we'll have this nailed down within pretty short order. But John, thank you for doing this.
Hal, it was great to talk to you about these cases, and I think we both agreed that if we are asked for any final reports this week, we're going to reply crinkle cut or julienne.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the inside joke for the menu watchers out there.
Yeah. So I'm going to switch back over here to me by myself. There we go. I'm Hal Humphreys. This is The Sound of Pursuit. We really appreciate you listening to us. If you want to find us on, again, Twitter, pursuitmag.com. Also, do not forget, if you're listening to this podcast on YouTube, go right underneath this video here and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us out a great deal. Thanks.